All right, welcome to the last week of the tutorial or training or whatever insight, I don't know, whatever thing, study really. So today I'll be talking on, I'll be taking us through machine translation dataset. I hinted this the beginning of this session, this tutorial, this study, that we are not going to make a linguist a linguist, a computer scientist. Rather, we're going to rest on what linguists do and see their position in NLP. And that is that linguists are really interested in human language, and human language is the data set. They work with data set from phonetics to phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, as the case may be. So because of that, primary goal or our primary goal as linguists in NLP is what? Data set. Now, in translation, what is really translation? Just from taking one form from one language to the other language. And then, so when we say machine translation, what does it really mean? Translation basically means you are moving from two languages. Remember last week I explained parallel corpora. We see the usefulness here. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about machine translation data set. So here I'm going to be doing two things. I'm going to be talking about machine translation data set and the creation of translation projects. So we'll be doing that in Omega T. I'm going to show us how to download Omega T, where to download it from, how to use it for your machine translation. All right, so here a branch of computational linguistics called machine translation is concerned with creating computer programs and algorithms that can automatically translate one human language into another. The creation of effective and precise translation systems that can aid in bridging the communication gap between speakers of different languages is the aim of machine translation. So when we are doing machine translation, we are trying to automatically, underline the term automatically translate human language from one language to the other in order to bridge gap. For now, I don't speak German, right? So if I am to be with a German speaker, before now we have interpreters. But if I were to be in a German country, so how do I move around? How do I know the market? I mean, so I use a translation system where I move from the language that I know to the language that I don't know, then try to pronounce it. That is translation. Using the machine to do it, using computer programs. Program means computer instructions. Algorithm means instructions, block of instructions to be executed. To automatically translate, instead of using humans, is called machine translation. So machine translation is the process of using machine to do translation. Right. So machine translation is what? Is the process of using machine to do what? Translation. What is translation? Taking a language from translating or replicating a form between languages. So if you want to say head in English, you say ori in Yoruba. In Kinyarwanda, you say umutwe. Umutwe, you say head, right? So if you don't speak another language, you know head. So it's very, very important. And then okay, maybe I will talk about this as I move ahead. So before I talk about machine translation data sets, so what instrument is useful for creating machine translation data set? ELAN. I think I explained software down around unit 3 thereabouts. And then ELAN is a very powerful tool that we can use to build a parallel corpora. And how is that done? Because when you are in ELAN, you can create different tiers. And because linguists work on known languages, and because we don't work on all the languages we speak, we don't necessarily have to speak the languages we are working on. We collect the word list, or we collect our data from the known language to unknown language. So for example, if I'm building a data set for German, I don't speak German. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the word list in the language I speak. For example, let's say English. Then I'm going to have a native speaker, like called language consultant, that will give me the words in English as I translate them from English to German. So when I record it, so we have English, German, English, German, English, German. When I have the tier in Elam, I can create English tier, German tier. I don't know whether it show us that. I think maybe if we have to, I'm going to show us how to do that. So you have to create the two tiers. When you create the tiers for English and German, when you are hearing the data set, you will hear English, German, right? When you are annotating, you select the portion of German, not English, but you type in your translation first. So when you're done translating, when you're done selecting the voice of German, putting the English equivalent, when you do it over the data set, most time speech data set is actually broken down into 10 minutes to 30 minutes. So it's not always an hour, right? That's a talk for another time. All right, so once you do that, you just have the German voice, but English translation. Remember, you change the view from annotation mode to transcription mode. Then you transcribe the language. Then you are putting the German equivalent side by side, so you can export it as TXT file, and then you have the parallel copy. That is if you are building from the scratch. All right, so machine translation, machine and data type. So what are the type of data set for machine? So we have the training data set and the test data set. So generally, it doesn't really have to be a machine, it doesn't have to be machine translation. It's just how we have the types of data set that will feed the machine with, right? So we have a training data set. So what is the training data set? The training data set is the data that we use to train the machine on the patterns of the language. Now, a typical machine translation data set is a parallel data set. Last week, I explained that parallel data set or parallel corpora are data sets that have at least two languages. So you have English, and then you have Yoruba, or you have Igbo, or you have German, whatever language, you're working on two languages. And it is that the language is parallel. Parallel in the sense that the form that you have in A is also the form that you have in B, but in two different languages. So when you have a training data set, you have a parallel data set that you use to train the machine. Now, that data set, it must have some qualities, such as representativeness. Remember that in corpus linguistics, it must be balanced, it must be representative enough, it must be natural. It's not synthetic, it must be natural. Now, the test data set. So when you have a client and he or she is working on machine translation or machine translation task, you are meant to actually divide your parallel corpora or your parallel data set into two parts. You send in the training data set, and then you develop the test data set. So suppose you are developing a data set and the size of the data set is 1,000 sentences, which we call context in data set. I explained that in unit 1, which we call concordance in corpus linguistics. I hope we are following. You're going to divide it into, let's say you want to divide it into, you train data set, you train data set to 60. So you have 600 sentences, and then you have 400 test data sets. And then they shouldn't be the same, because if you give machine the same form, the same pattern, for example, if you have, I am Samuel, I am going, I am eating, I am go, it's easier for machine to learn. It has to be of different size, sometimes phrases, sometimes sentences, sometimes words, so that the machine can learn. And then you really want to make your training data set noisy. So what is a noise in data set? A noise is unwanted patterns. So for example, if you have a data set in English, I can input some tags, some things that are not really relevant in the data set. Not really because I really want to put it there, but because I don't want my machine to learn too much. So for example, if your machine only trained on accurate data sets, it becomes difficult for machine to actually know when it has troubles. So that is why it's advisable to put some noise. You know what I mean by noise? Imperfect, unwanted,
Can sound? Okay, sir.
unwanted noise in your unwanted elements in your data set. So we have a test data set. The text data set is the data that used to test what the machine has learned. It's that simple. So what are the techniques for building machine translation data sets? So we have the manual technique, and then we have the synthetic technique. So I'm going to explain the manual technique. So what is the manual technique? Is just that you are building the data set from the scratch, like the ELAN I explained to you, where you have the language you are working on. Let's say I want to build a data set for let me look for a language that I don't even know. Let's say it's Zulu. I don't speak Zulu, right? So as a linguist, you don't the plus you have over any other person working on machine translation is because you don't have to speak the language before you can work on it. So you just have to. So sometimes there are different tricks to it. The trick I use, I'm going to teach us at the end of this course. I'm going to go on news outlets in English, and I make sure they have the translation, just like BBC. Sometimes you have the BBC Yoruba, you have the BBC English, BBC Swahili, whatever language you're working on. So sometimes you can trace the English and then use the English to build the data set. So what you are doing is you can go to the news website, put it on Antcom, make sure you generate the types, you know the type of data set, you know the shape, you know the types there, you know the tokens there. Once you do that, you know, okay, this is the type of data I'm dealing with. Is it health? Is it football? Is it sport? Is it what exactly it is that I'm dealing with? Once I figure that out, I can create a Google Doc. Once I create a Google Doc, I use that Google Doc to generate. I put my question as in English. That is if I want to crowdsource. I think I explained this technique in Unit 2. So if I want to give it to native speaker to work on it, how do I really build that kind of project? Maybe I should quickly explain that. So how I will build that kind of project is you have the quality assurance process and then you have the task process. So the task process is when they are working on the task, let's say translation. Then you have the reviewers, then you have the lead reviewers. Among them, they don't have to know. So the task translators that are working, they are working independent of the reviewers. The reviewers are working independent of the lead reviewer. Right. So that is the way to build any NLP task concerning data annotation. So when you're using this approach, you are technically building from scratch. So you can get the data set in French, in German, in whatever language you're working as your primary language, as a source language. Then you have the target language. So that is just how to build a data set in a manual form. Maybe I'm going to show us, how to just prepare Google Doc. Go on Google Doc, that's part of the suite you have in your email. Create a Google Doc. Then when you crawl the web using the link we used last week in the corpus linguistics, you crawl it in English, you put it in Anscom, you understand the data you have, the tokens, the types, you look at the difficult terms that may be really difficult. You may get specialists to do that, to put them back to the data set. And then you use it to develop glossaries. I'm going to explain that the last part of the class. So when you are doing all this, you are manually building the data set. So if you use this approach, it's easier for you to actually monitor repetitiveness. So some data sets are just repetition, and in the mind of data set, repetition means tokens. Remember that? And then types means new words, right? So types means independent or unique words in your data set. Tokens mean all the total number of the words in your data set. So that is manual translation. So let's say synthetic translation. So when you are doing a synthetic method, it means you are using an artificial method. So it is a way of augmenting the data set that you have. So for example, let's say I have a data set, it's 10,000 and I want to increase it to 50,000. How do I do that? All right, this is called, you can use different techniques. You can augment the data set. Data augmentation is or synthetic translation or synthetic data. It's just always almost productive in image generation, but because we are dealing with language, we're not dealing with images, at least not for now. It can be really tricky. So what are the techniques you can use? You can use synonyms. You can use replacement. So you can copy, you can duplicate the data set, find and replace some words. Of course, after you've looked up the word in the outcome, find and replace some words. Look for look for synonymous words. Replace them. You get different meanings in the target language. So another thing you can use is back translation. So what is back translation? Back translation is when you are moving from English. Let's say I want to translate from language A to B. What I'm going to do is I'm going to translate from language A to C. Sorry, I'm going to translate from language A to B, B to A. That is called back translation. I'm going to translate from language A to B, then B back to A. So this works that what you have in A, in the first A now, will be different from what you have in A, the second A. Why? It has passed through another language and it's most likely going to change the meaning. Why? Because true translation does not really exist in its sense. It's a miracle. It's not sure. So because of that, we can do back translation to do synthetic. So if I have a synthetic data set, I will have it in English, Yoruba, for example, then I can translate it back from Yoruba to English, right? So that is how to use synthetic data. There is another one that is called round trip translation. That's the technique I described now. There is one that you use machine. So in this case, let's say I have a parallel data set in English, and then I can put it on Google. I want to translate to English. So I can have a parallel data set in, let's say I want to translate to Yoruba. I can have a parallel data set that is in English. Then I'm going to put it in Yoruba. Then I'm going to go again. I'll pick that content I translated from Yoruba back to English. That is back translation. In back translation, we use modal. We don't use we don't manually do it. Just like the round trip. So the first one I described is round trip, where you move from language A to B, then B back to A. Then there's one that's a back translation. In this case, you have a monolingual data set in a source language. You go to the target language. From one target language, you use the model again back to the source language. That is back translation. So creation of translation projects. So here now, I'm going to show you how to create a translation project using Omega T and how to use Omega T, and then we are done for the class. So before I go into Omega T, can you ask your questions if you have questions? If you have questions, let me take your questions.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
I believe you can hear me. My question is the training data set and the test data set will be like will be accumulated at the same time.
Will be accommodated or accumulated?
Accumulated, like we'll get
Yeah,
them at the same time.
it's not really advisable because you will have the same pattern of data set. If you do, your model may not train well.
So,
Yeah, so if you have a
and
client saying that I want to build 50,000 sentences, it's better you build 40,000 first, and then you later build the remaining 20,000 or 10,000, sorry, or you build 30, 20, depending on what you want to do.
Well, excuse me, sir, I have a question, please.
Okay.
My question is that it is possible in the machine translation that to translate from a source language to another languages. What I mean is that language A is the source language, and you want to translate to language B and language C at the same time.
Oh, you mean multiple translation?
Yes.
With the same, yeah, if you are doing manual translation, if you are doing manually, I think I should show us how to use it.
No, I mean in the machine translation.
Excuse me.
Yes, you can. You can. You can.
Okay.
Depend on the model. You just create a pipeline, and then the pipeline moves like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I assume you don't have questions anymore. So.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
My question is, how large should the data and the training data set be compared to the test data set?
I think I mentioned this 60-40. Most likely. 60% to 50%. That's my experience. I'm not sure there's a gauge for it. It's just depending on the client, it's not a specification, but on the task you're working on part-time.
And how many sentences do I need?
How many sentences do you need? That is how large your data set is. So if you, it depends on the client. If the client is, you need a large data set really to train a good model. You need like 100,000 sentences. 500,000 sentences. So if you are having 500,000 sentences, you will take 60% of 500,000 sentences as a training data set and 40% of it as your test data set. Because among the training data set, some machine engineers will still divide it into dev. That's dev data. That's the one that used to develop within the parameters. But I don't really want to talk about those complex stuff. Just let's keep it as simple as it is. So I'm gonna show us omega T, then I'm gonna show us how to do it in Elan. So this is omega T, and I've had many questions. People say, okay, why do you prefer omega T? Really? So there is nothing why and how I prefer omega T, just that I can use translation memory with it. I can do a lot of crazy stuff with it. I can plug in my model if I have a model, especially if I have an API. Yeah, it can automatically translate for me. But for now, for today, sadly, I don't have an API. So if you download Omega T, you can just search on the web Omega T software. Like you can just download it. It's pretty straightforward. So to start using Omega T, I'm gonna start with new. Once I create new, I don't know why this guy is slowing me down. Oh, it's slow. I don't know why. So I'm gonna give it a name. Let's say NLP for linguists. I'm gonna put it in my documents. I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna put it there, and I'm gonna click save. What do you do? What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select this place first. All right. So I'll put NLP. Yeah, so immediately you create your project, it's gonna prompt you to select a source language. So I'm gonna select English. English. So from English, pardon me, I'm gonna use Yoruba for my target language. So I'm gonna check for Yoruba here, Yoruba. So once I do this, this button, this sentence level segmenting means that I want my annotation to be, I want my translation to be sentence by sentence. Auto propagation of translation. What is propagation? Propagation is back and forth from A to B, B to A. That's propagation. Yeah, and everything is fine. I'm gonna click enter. So it's gonna create a project for me. And at this point, it wants me to select my source file. But before I select my source file, I want to do something real quick. So because I want to let my machine to help me with the translation, and I want translation to be faster, I'm gonna go on the web and get data set that I'm gonna put in my translation memory. I think I should just go real quick straight to the folder that was created, and then use that to explain to us how to really navigate this whole thing. So wow, why is this guy here? Don't know what. No worries. All right, you see NLP for language. Remember the folder I created. So I wanted to pay attention here. So this dictionary is if you have a dictionary of the language you are working on, that is the one that has preferably the one that has the source and the target file. You put the document here. If you have a glossary, remember I was explaining to us that if you are working on a big translation project and you really want Omega T to help you, you're gonna create a glossary. I'm gonna explain to us how to do that. So Omega T, just leave it at this. The source file now, it means the source language. That's the language you want to translate from. And then the target language, here you will see the project, you will see your document that has been translated. Your TM is your translation memory. So my TM, I put it in auto. So what does TM means? It means that it will work on some documents and then use it to generate translation for you. Then you can just keep correcting and verifying. I'm going to show us that. All right, so let's say I want to start with, I don't have a dictionary. I want to create a glossary term for myself. What am I going to do? And I'm working between Yoruba and English. So I'm going to use my and you remember I was explaining that we can just crawl the web. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna get BBC Yoruba. It's gonna correct itself. All right, so I have the BBC Yoruba. I don't speak the language, assumingly. So how much is in my translation memory will determine how much I'll be able to, the machine is gonna help me. So I'm gonna, now remember how we use it? We go to the link of the news, we go to adjust demo, we copy the news, we paste it here, we click submit. It automatically scroll the web for us. So I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna copy this. So I'm gonna create a document. Where I'm gonna put it. So this is just I'm not sure we would have the time to go over everything. So once I copy the document, I just want to give us a sample. I will crawl as much as I want. I don't really want it to translate the document I want or the one I'm working on at the moment. I'm just trying to feed the memory. You know, machines do not generate their own memories because they can't think, right? But machines do have input. So you are trying to create a lot of input for it. So the more the data set, the more machine is going to learn. I think I should just share my screen so that when I'm navigating through the tabs, you can see. All right, so I created this document. I'm gonna paste it here. So I'm trying to create a translation memory for my document. So I can add as much as I want in this document so that it can serve as translation memory for my translation. So I'm gonna save it. You can add as much as you would, sorry. So I'm gonna save it in documents. Precisely, I'm gonna save it in so I'm gonna save it in there. I want to save it in NLP for linguists. I'm gonna save it in my translation memory. I'm gonna keep it in auto. I'm gonna keep this in test. Yeah, I'm gonna click save. So it has saved my document. Now I want to generate glossaries from this document so that when I have it, the machine can learn easily. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to create a note, a plain text using Notepad. It's taking some time.
Hello, I can't hear you again.
I've been talking. Who is saying I can't hear you? All right, so I'm trying to create. I'm doing a lot of stuff on my laptop. The laptop is simple time. So what I'm trying to do here is I want to go to AntConc, use it to generate glossaries, then translate the glossaries. When I have the glossary, I'm talking about terms, types in the data set. I'm going to copy the type in the data set, put it in my glossary in Omega T folder. Then the glossary in Omega T folder will work together with this translation memory and make sure that the machine helps me. Let me just show you a quick example. All right, so this is it. I'm going to save this. The documents. Work sample plus. So I mean work sample glossary. I'm going to save it. I'm going to close this. So I'm going to open my AntConc. All right. Where is my AntConc? Antcom. Okay, here. So I'm trying to open Antcom. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to generate a glossary, and I'm trying to explain how to generate that glossary. Antcom is wasting our time. We'll just leave it. All right, so once we have the glossary, right, voila. So here we have the Antcom. We go to File, we open Files. We want to use the generate glossary, right? Glossary just means terms, so don't stress. Okay, so yeah. I'm going to go to no. Close. Open. Yeah, so I have the corpora there. So I'm going to go to word list, pane. Then here, sort by, I will move it from frequency to word. No, it should be types actually. All right, so I'm gonna start. So yeah, so these are the unique terms I have here. So I'm gonna copy that. I think I'm using the wrong. I think I'm using the old Antcom. Pardon me. Let me open the new one. So because this one I just opened does not have types, and we want to really deal with the types. Why is it taking time to load? So basically, if you generate the types, this is just not giving me what I want. So I think there are two of them opening now. I think, yeah, this is the one I wanted to open. It's a bit larger than the one I opened earlier, and it's a bit it can be a bit confusing if you are not really used to it. So we want to generate why is it taking forever to load? I can't figure out. I don't know too. Oh. So responding. All right, so I don't know why this guy is not responding. So once what you do is you go to file, you open the corpus, you go to Word, you sort by types and not by frequency. Once you do that, then you can generate the word list, You copy it, you paste it in your Word document, you translate it as a word by word into the source language. That is if you speak the language or you get people to translate for you. Once you are done, then you go back to your source file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I want to click add file. Remember, I am on Omega T. So I want to add file. I'll go to documents. It's taking some time to load. I think it covers. So yeah, before I move forward, let's go to corpus. So I want to choose a file. I'm going to go to, let's see my file. This, open. Yeah, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go to Word. Now you see here, sort by type. So you remember what types are? Unique word in the data set. I'm going to click Start. It's going to generate the word list for me. 100 eats is not what I want. I want all the eats so that I can be able to work on it well. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to copy this. I can copy everything, or I copy only this place. Right. So this is what I just needed. Copy this, and I put it in a document. Documents here. So yeah, so this is how I'm gonna translate it. We are as president. Like, just try to translate that. So Abayo, that's a breakthrough success. Adari, that is manager or leader. So this is how to do that. So once I do this, I save it. Then I'm gonna go to my documents. Go to TM. I don't want it to be in TM, right? I want it to be in glossary. So I'm gonna click glossary, open, and I'm gonna click gloss. So it saved it there. So what I'm gonna do is I want to select my source file. Remember? So it's here. So I'm gonna select this, open. So I have my source file selected. I'm gonna, you see, now I've uploaded my source file. I'm gonna click this. Now you see what is happening here. It picked everything as in sentences. Now I want my translation to work for me. So I'm gonna click reload. This time around, it's gonna work on the translation memory and work on the target file. So I'm gonna click close. I'll go back to what I'm working on. So how do I know if it has worked for me? So I'm gonna click fuzzy match. So if it didn't work, then I didn't do it well. So if I want to use machine translation, this is what I'm going to go. I'm going to go to options, machine translation. So I'm going to select each translation. I can use my memory. I can use Google. Let's say I have Google. I can use Google. And I'm going to go again. I can reload and see whether it's going to work. So I'm going to close it. So I'm going to check fuzzy match. Do we have any matches? So what happens in fuzzy matches is going to show you some matches here. And then you're going to copy and paste or recorrect. If you have your, let's say you want to use You want to use an API. So I think API is just like $2. So you can just use an API. So you're gonna go to machine translation here. Then you're gonna select the API you want. Then you're gonna say, okay. The API is gonna automatically work for you.
AI.
It's gonna automatically work for you, and then it's gonna do, that is when you click the machine translation. That is when you can see what it has done in machine translation. So let's say you are working on the language from scratch and you are building your machine translation from your speech dataset. You're going to be using ELAN. So I'm going to touch it real quick. Then I take few questions. I will call it a day. Um, oh, ELAN is taking time. Basically, I think I've explained this. You can check Unit 2 on how to use ELAN to create text, tier, types, and how to create a template. You can check the videos. I think that will be all for today. Thank you all for coming around. If you have questions, can I take your questions? So, Gilan is here. Should I quickly explain that? All right, so let's say you have ELAN. You're gonna go to file. Let's say you want to do another one, new. Once you select new, this is gonna take my time. Let's see how we go. I'm just using this as an example. I'm gonna select my audio file. I'm not doing that now. So I'm gonna send it from this page to ELAN. I'm gonna click OK. I assume I don't have a template for the machine translation I'm working on. It's gonna initialize. So it's gonna load it. It's gonna load the audio file. Now I have the audio file, right? So I want to create my type. I explained earlier, before you create anything, you cannot create here, just create type, add new type. This time around, I want to create a type name, let me say source, en, everything, I leave it like that. I'm going to create another one that is target, YOR, Yoruba. So I'm going to create a stereotype. So why do I need to create a stereotype? What does a stereotype mean? It means what is the relationship between, you use stereotype to categorize the relationship between two types. So in this case, symbolic subdivision means this type is a subdivision of the above. Let's say, for example, you are working on sentences. You know, you can break sentences to morphemes, morphemes to word, sentences to phrases, phrases to words, words to morphemes, morphemes to phonemes, right? So if this target type is actually a subdivision of the source type, I'm going to click symbolic subdivision. But if they are associated, it means that they are the same form, they are only associated. For example, the translation of the sentence. From English to Yoruba, the translation of the same sentence, they are symbolic association. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to click add. So I'm going to delete the first one I have. It's not really useful, but I don't need it. So I can just close that. So I want to create my tier. So I'm going to add new tier. So I'm going to now create source en. The participant is, let's say, Doreen. Permit me to pronounce this way. let's say I'm the Sam is the annotator. It's not a parent tier. So what is tier type? The tier type in this case is source in it. So I'm going to add it. So I'm going to create another one for my target language. So target iPhone Yoruba. So the participant is Dorin. So I'm going to, the annotator is Sam. So the parent here now. So I'm going to assume that the parent of the English, the Yoruba is the English, right? So you see it automatically select the tier type for me. So I'm going to add it. So I don't know if it's default here. I'm going to delete it. So delete, yeah, delete it. I'm going to click yes. So I'm going to close it. Now here, so let's assume that I am working on Yoruba English, right? So let's say when I play my audio, Control B to the beginning, Control space to play. Yeah, I said Samuel, right? So let's say I said Samuel. The person is gonna give me in Yoruba, right? So let's say the person gave me in Yoruba. What I'm gonna do is after I heard Samuel, I'm gonna select the Yoruba. So I'm gonna double tap inside there, but this time around I'm gonna be typing in the Yoruba, but I'm gonna be typing English. So I'm gonna type Samuel here. So once I do that, you know, I put English, what I had in English in the source language, I put it in the target language, selecting the target language, right? So I'm gonna change the view from annotation mode to transcription mode. You're gonna ask me to select, so I'm gonna select the source, I'm gonna select the target, I'm gonna apply it. Once I do that, you see, so I'm gonna type the Samuel, the English here, whatever way I want to do it, like it's just dependent on me. So that is how to, so if you want to use this template, so you just go back to mode, application mode. So if you want to be using this template, let's say you have many people working on it, you just go here, save as template. When you save it as template, it's going to be an ELAN template that you can share with people. That is how to do it when you're working from the scratch. Thank you so very much. If you have questions, can I take your questions?
Yes, I have a question. To Omega, why didn't you put it in a table, and why did you put it to glossary and not to dictionary?
All right, so I put it in glossary because I wanted to be in glossary times. I was assuming I had a dictionary. You can put everything in the glossary, you can put it in the dictionary too. It automatically works for you.
What's the difference between glossary and dictionary in Omega?
So yeah, you know, I mean, glossary terms are most likely not as comprehensive as dictionary. A dictionary would have the part of speech, sometimes the pronunciation, sometimes the polysemous words, sometimes, I mean, a lot of entries. Glossary would just be terminologies, not a dictionary.
So it's not a question of only one language and two
Yes.
languages?
Yes, it's general.
Okay.
Do we have other questions? All right, in the absence of no other questions, thank you so much for coming around. So this would be the last class for teaching. Hopefully by next week before Friday, I'm gonna share a Google Doc with us for us to input our names. So I'm gonna create a project for us. We're gonna be building a speech data set, annotated data set for our languages. I'm gonna explain the instructions to us, so you're gonna do it. I'm thinking of creating a Google Doc now so that everybody on the call can have it and fill it at their convenient time. Or I will just share it. It's so that we don't waste much of our time. I'm gonna share it. So when you have the document, just specify the language you speak. I have the document. I have a document that has this information, but unfortunately, I see that we don't have consistency in the number of people that are attending per time. So I'm gonna have it again. So if you see the document, kindly fill in your details. So I'm gonna use that to generate the task for everyone. So thank you so very much for coming around. I really appreciate it. Do we still have any other person with questions? Okay. Thank you. I take that for